Welcome to Magique Showcase video. Today I want to showcase the console feature of Magique that was implemented recently. First I want to quickly demonstrate it and then I'll show the code example. First of all, a quick practical demonstration of what the console feature can do. For example, you see all those red boxes and now you don't see them anymore. In this case, if you see here, we can toggle the hitboxes on and off. Okay, so let's turn it off for a second. As you can also see, the console supports auto-completion. For example, let's turn on the pathfinding overlay. Now we see all the pathfinding grid cells. The red ones, for example, is where entities cannot go. Okay, let's turn it off again. And let's go through how this works. First of all, we can see that all the terminal output is transferred to the console as well. This happens automatically in the background. Then you can open the console by pressing page up. Note that everything I'm gonna say from now on is also documented inside the header as always. The other controls are just type in and press enter to send the text, and then arrow up and down to toggle through the typed in text. This is very similar to Unix consoles or the Minecraft console as well. There are some pre-registered commands, but you can also register your own commands. This is where you can define a lot of powerful features. To show all commands, we can use the pre-registered command all, which shows us all the registered commands, including their description. Then to invoke a command, you simply type its name and press enter. To use the autocomplete, you can just use the tab button. For example, H, tab, it autocompletes, and enter. If there are multiple matching commands like so, you can just use the arrow up and down keys again to switch through, and then if you selected one, you can autocomplete it with tab. For the naming syntax, the util commands just have the plain value, and for all those that manipulate Magique directly are prefixed with m dot. Okay. There's three different data types in the Magique console. Data types are just needed to differentiate different types of data, so you can more easily implement your own commands. In this case, we have Boolean, number, and string. Everything is a string. If it is only digits, it is a number. And if it's any of those specific values, it will be passed to a Boolean. Note that passing happens completely automatically in the background and you don't have to worry about it. Okay, let's try this out. We can use print hey, which prints out the hey value. We can use print 123, which prints out the number. And you can use any of those, for example off, which prints out the Boolean value. In this case, it uses false or true to output the value. If there's an error, the error will be shown. For example, these commands just take a Boolean value on or off. For example, if I then use a number, it will automatically show me the type mismatch. Note that currently the tooltip does not show any parameter information. This might change in the future. So currently you have to remember what kind of type your parameter needs, your command needs. But it will always be shown if you make a mistake. So the same if I pass in a string, it also doesn't work. The next powerful feature are defines, which are just environmental parameters you might know from the Unix console. So first we can clear and we can reshow all commands. As you can see, to define environmental parameters, you can use define and undefine. You can define by typing the commands, the name of the parameter you want to define, and then its value. In this case, we defined my param to the value hey, which is of type string. We can then dynamically retrieve the value of the param by prefixing the name with a $sign. It will then automatically be parsed, and instead of the my param string, it will input the defined value. We can then also just reassign it to, for example, a number, and then print it again, and it will print a number. To undefine environmental param, you can just use undef and specify its name. Now it has been removed. If we now try to reference it again, we get another warning. If you want to see more features, you can just look at the console header and read through it with more detail. Now we'll jump into the code examples. The example shown here can be found in the examples folder under headers, and then we'll talk about the console example. Note that all the commands I showed earlier are defined in exactly the same way as specified here. To create a command, you simply call the command constructor with a name. Everything is as well documented inside the header, as is always with magique. So you specify the name and an optional description. Then you can add a parameter with add param, where you specify its name, and then a list which contains all the valid types for this parameter. For example, in this case, we make a command print hello, and it has one parameter, which is a name, and its allowed type is only a string. We can also test this out by just running the example, open the console with page up, and then we can print hello, and then we can input any name. The second thing I want to showcase are optional parameters. For example, here I create a command as always with a name and a description. Then I add one parameter, which is a number, and then I add an optional parameter. Note also the syntax, which is called the builder pattern, which you can directly just chain those methods without having to specify the variable. Okay, so we add an optional param, which just has a name and then a value. So if the parameter is not given, it will automatically default to this given value. Let's try. We add number, we specify the number 1, which is going to be 5, and then 3. Okay, so it prints the sum is 8. If we leave out the second number, it prints out the sum is 5, because the value defaults to 0.0. The last type of parameter is a variadic parameter. A variadic parameter can match any amount of parameters, including none at all. This sounds a little bit confusing, but is very similar to print implementations. So if you call, for example, print, you can specify any amount of parameters and it would print them all. You can do this by just specifying the parameter as a variadic parameter with the type string. But you can really pass in any list of allowed types for all the parameters. Here we have the log messages function, and it takes any amount of string parameters. If we give it a single number, it will not match, because we are only allowed to pass strings. Now to determine what your command actually does, you have to use the set function method. The set function method just receives all the parameters in the vector, and you can then just do anything you want really. Note that you don't have to do any error handling. Your function will only be called if all the parameters have been passed correctly and have the correct type. For example, here I just access the first parameter and access the string value, because I can be sure that the first parameter is a string. Then I iterate through the rest of the parameters here, because I don't know how many there are, because any amount of parameters can be matched. And I just log them as well. Note that here we are using the method add console string, so we can add a string to the console as we've seen here. The last step to register your command is to actually call the method register console command and then just pass in your created command variable. Thanks for watching the console showcase video, and I'll appreciate it if you check out and star my project on GitHub. Bye bye.